amoy na diri ang sitwasyon mga daw dagat na diri ang ari siya ang amon diri na
Ayan mga kaibigan, dahil sa lakas ng alon, nasira yung isang part na yun.
You've been looking at clips of how Tropical Storm Dante battered parts of Visayas and Mindanao. No less than 200 families have been evacuated in Agusan del Norte, while massive flooding ravaged Leyte.
3 casualties have been recorded so far. Metro Manila is expected to bear Dante's brunt tonight as it makes its 6th landfall over Bataan. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Robbie Alampa. You're watching The Big Story. Let's start with some Quezon City residents already preparing as early as now for Tropical Storm Dante's onslaught.
But some don't intend to go to evacuation centers for fear of getting infected with COVID-19. Jenny Dongon has the big story.
While Tropical Storm Dante is still far from Metro Manila, residents of Barangay Tatalon and Quezon City have already geared up. According to Pagasa's forecast, rainy season will start this weekend.
Base po dun sa projections, malaki po yung chance na magde-declare na tayo ng tag-ulan. At ito po, ang proof po nito ay yung ma-observe na rainfall doon sa western sections ng ating bansa.
Many Tatalon residents are ready to evacuate anytime soon since they've already experienced multiple floods in the past, even with minimal rain. But Sally doesn't want to for fear of catching COVID-19.
Sa kapitbahay, market kami dyan. O kaya, yung bubong dun sa kabila, kumakatok kami dun sa kapitbahay sa taas.
Christy's family has the same sentiments, and it's not like they haven't gotten accustomed to the flood anyway. They ought to stay at their house 5th floor where provisions are also at the ready.
Meron naman po kaming naka-raiding sa taas kami. Tapos, siyempre, yung mga paninda, di pag wala kami, di yung kainin namin. May tindahan naman po kami. Tapos, yung mga, dapat po mga mababasa, nakit na po namin ng mabuti.
NDRRMC spokesperson Mark Timbal tells One News that those who will evacuate should still comply with health protocols.
Please make sure that you keep yourselves protected. Wear your face mask, your face shield, observe physical distancing to ensure that you will also be protected against COVID-19.
He also advised those in hazard-prone areas to always stay abreast with the latest weather bulletin.
They have to coordinate with the local government units, especially the barangays. If these authorities inform them that there is already the need for evacuation, please make sure that you obey these instructions. And when you evacuate,
The Metro Manila Development Authority and Metro Manila mayors visited some pumping stations and flood-prone areas in the capital.
Ito ay nagpapump ng 7 cubic meter per second. No? So dapat ito tuloy-tuloy. Kung hindi tumuloy-tuloy ito, magkakaroon tayo ng baha sa area na to. Ang problema, hanggang Makati pwede magbaha.
MMDA Chairman Benher Abalos also made sure that garbage won't pile up in drainage systems. For News 5, Jenny Dongon, we are One News.
To talk to us more about the impact of Tropical Storm Dante, we have NDRRMC spokesperson Mark Timbal on the line. Mr. Timbal, 3 casualties reported so far. Ano po ang update sa impact ng Dante at saka which areas in particular have to brace for the storm tonight?
So Robbie, good evening po at kay Ma'am Gretchen din, good evening. So far sir, ang heavily affected po talaga nito ay based upon the initial assessments po na ginagawa ng ating mga regional disaster councils ay sa Mindanao area. We've received information that based upon the initial assessment to the damages to agriculture, we already lost 7,930,000 pesos worth of rice and corn crops in Region 12 alone. The other assessments in the different regions are still ongoing, and the preparations are being done in the areas that are still under signal number 2. Tonight. Ibig sabihin po yung pinakamalalakas po na hangin at sa pagbuhos ng ulan ay magaganap doon sa mga areas po na yan in the western part of Calabarzon and also in the western part of Luzon.
Okay, aabot po ba sa NCR ang tama ng Dante this evening and in the coming days? And also, we're also of course concerned about COVID and the protocols in place. Doon po sa mga evacuation centers natin, ano po ang mga protocols para hindi kumalat ang COVID?
So far, sir, ito pong Metro Manila, ang ating expectation po ay medyo mahahagip siya, makakaranas tayo ng pag-uulan. Pero we're just under signal number 1. Yung areas po talaga na signal number 2 talaga yung makaka-experience nitong brunt ng heavy rains and winds. When it comes to the COVID-19 protocols natin, sir, ang ating pagpapaalala sa ating mga local government units ay nailabas na po natin. This is a reiteration of the adjustments that we have done back in the rainy season, starting in the rainy season of 2020, wherein we integrated the COVID-19 protection protocols, meaning to say, in the process of evacuation pa lang po, dapat tinitingnan na po natin yung health situation ng ating mga ini-evacuate na kababayan. If one of our evacuees, supposed evacuees, exhibit or manifest symptoms of any respiratory disease or fever at the very least, they should not be brought to the evacuation center, but instead they should be brought to the nearest quarantine facility or, depending on the health condition, to a hospital so that they can be given proper assistance, even the testing activities to confirm their situation. This also includes the observance of physical distancing in the evacuation centers, as well as the health monitoring activities. Kapag meron po nag-develop ng sakit po diyan, dapat inaagapan po ng ating mga health officers na nagmamando ng evacuation sites to ensure that these people get separated from the general evacuated population, sir.
Okay, maraming salamat po, Mr. Timbal. That was NDRRMC spokesman Mark Timbal. Tropical Storm Dante is expected to continue to carry heavy rains over parts of Luzon until tomorrow afternoon. As of 5 p.m., Pag-asa spotted Dante over the coastal waters of Oriental Mindoro. It's moving west-northwest as it heads towards the eastern coast of Batangas. Signal number 2 has been raised over the northern and central portions of Oriental and Occidental Mindoro, Batangas, Cavite, Bataan, as well as the southwestern portion of Bulacan, western portion of Pampanga, Zambales, the western portion of Tarlac, west portion of Pangasinan. Areas under signal number 1 include Marinduque, the western portion of Romblon, the rest of Oriental Mindoro and Occidental Mindoro, the western portion of Quezon and Laguna. Signal number 1 is also up in Metro Manila, Rizal, the rest of Bulacan, Pampanga, Tarlac, and the western portion of Nueva Ecija. Same goes for the rest of Pangasinan, the southern portion of Benguet, La Union, and the northwestern portion of Antique. As of 8 a.m., the NDRRMC is reporting that Dante has so far taken the lives of at least 3 people in regions 11 and 12. 1 person remains missing, 2 are injured due to the storm.
These are the other big stories tonight. After weeks of declines in COVID-19 cases, the country's reproduction number has gone up once again. Daily case count has even shot up by 37% on a weekly basis. The Energy Department looks to file charges against power suppliers who did preventive maintenance during the summer season. But for Senator Manny Pacquiao, Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi is to blame for the rotational brownouts. And another Pinoy pride is off to Japan. The phenom Kiefer Ravena signed with the Shiga Lake Stars for the Japan B-League. Question is, will the PBA let him go? These big stories after the break.
Good evening, I'm Robbie Alapay. You're still watching The Big Story. Metro Manila cities and nearby provinces continue to experience rotational brownouts due to insufficient power supply. A consumer advocacy group says this could have been avoided. Camille Samonte with this story.
The rainy weather could have played a role, but demand in the Luzon grid was low on Wednesday. Add to that the early synchronization of the Sual Coal Plant Unit 2. This prompted the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines to lift the 13-hour red and yellow alerts in Luzon ahead of schedule. But prior to this, the Energy Department said that the island's reserve supply has turned negative.
Ibig sabihin, mas marami na ang nangangailangan ng kuryente at mas konti na yung pwedeng magbigay na generators. Ito ay dahilan sa mga nasisira dati hindi umaandar na bigla ang tumitirik na mga power plant.
NGCP data showed that the Luzon grid's peak demand of 11,515 megawatts far exceeds its available capacity of 11,260 megawatts. As a result, Metro Manila cities and nearby provinces experienced rotational brownouts. The DOE is looking into filing charges against airing power suppliers. The agency prohibits preventative maintenance in the second quarter when demand is high.
Pinapaaral po namin kung ito po ay isang krimen that is tantamount to economic sabotage. Pangatlo, tinitingnan din po natin, what happened to the required reserves? Dahil tama, may nasisirang mga planta. Does it happen? May nakikita ba tayong mga numero based on historical? Sabi nyo ba, nangyari na dati? Nangyari na nga po, kaya hinahanap natin yung level of reserve. Ibig sabihin, kung magkakaroon ng sira ang planta, nasaan yung mga kapalit?
The Energy Regulatory Commission has already directed generation companies to explain their unplanned outages that reach allowable cap. But for Laban Consumer, the DOE is to blame. They say this is a yearly occurrence which could be prevented.
Tayo po ay may kinakaharapang pagtaas ng presyo na babayaran nating kuryente. Yan po ay dahilan ng hindi kapabayaan I would say hindi ginawa ang kanilang trabaho ng Department of Energy.
Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi defended the agency, saying they have no control over the simultaneous plant breakdowns.
Beyond our control, na nasira ang 4 na planta na sabay-sabay.
Rotational brownouts in Luzon are expected to last until June 7. For News 5, Camille Samonte, we are One News.
The Octa Research Group says the COVID-19 downtrend in recent weeks in the NCR seems to be slowing or even seeing a reversal. Based on the group's research, COVID-19 reproduction rate increased from 0.57 by May 25 to 0.68 by the end of May. This pushed the R0 of the entire country to 1.09. Areas outside Metro Manila are also experiencing a delayed surge. In an interview with One News, the chiefs, Father Nicanor Austriaco, said this pattern suggests that Metro Manila residents may have brought variants to other provinces. Professor Guido David, meanwhile, warned of super spreader events that can cause more upticks in NCR.
Police Chief General Guillermo Eleazar says he's open to regular neuropsychiatric tests in the PNP after the killing incident in Quezon City. Meanwhile, PNP data showed that out of over 150 cases filed against police for murder and homicide, only 4 were sent behind bars. Patricia Mangune has the big story.
Police Lieutenant David Quejada has been in the service for 20 years. Corporal Christian Dones has been in it for 7. When off duty, the two choose not to carry their issued firearms. They're also cautious when drinking so as not to get into fights.
Sa akin, bakit pa akong dadala ng baril kung pupuntahan lang ako ng kapitbahay? Nagdadasal na lang Kung may mainit mo ulo mo, kailan lumayo ka muna Lumayo ka muna sa lugar na yon para ma-maintain natin yung integrity natin.
The two were disheartened to hear about the killing of a 52-year-old woman in Quezon City at the hands of Police Master Sergeant Hensi Zinampan. They say not all cops are the same.
Hindi natin pwede i-drag yung buong PNP sa isang incident na napaka-isolated po.
Both Quijada and Dones have already passed multiple neuropsychiatric tests in the PNP. These are written and oral tests that evaluate a police personnel's psychological well-being. It's a requirement for recruitment and promotion.
Dapat talaga na nasa tamang katinoan ka kasi hahawak ka ng baril.
PNP Chief General Guillermo Eleazar is open to conducting the test regularly to prevent further cases of police calawags.
Hindi ibig sabihin pasado ka sa simula na maayos, along the way pwedeng mag-develop ka ng problema sa pag-iisip dahil sa maraming factors na iyong haharapin.
Eleazar also ordered the PNP Internal Affairs Service to fast-track the administrative case and dismissal proceedings against Zinampan. The Quezon City Police also filed a murder case against him.
Humingi po lang ako ng dispensya, gawin po namin lahat. Makulong siya at matanggal sa serbisyo.
Zinampan started his service in 2006. For 9 years, he was with the PNP Special Action Force and with the Police Security Protection Group for 5 years. He has no pending or previous cases. Latest data from the PNP's Directorate for Investigation and Detection Management showed 103 cops charged for murder and 55 for homicide since July 2016. So far, only 4 have been convicted. For News 5, Patricia Mangune. We are One News.
Time for our next look at some of today's big stories. The World Health Organization has approved Sinovac's emergency use, bolstering confidence toward its jab. The WHO said Sinovac is safe, effective, and quality assured. Studies showed it prevented symptomatic disease in 51% of recipients and prevented severe COVID and hospitalization in 100% of the studied population. The WHO Solidarity trials will kick off in 2 weeks' time using a new COVID-19 vaccine brand. In a House committee hearing, Dr. Hodor Lim of the Philippine General Hospital said the yet-to-be-announced brand will be used in 20 sites across Metro Manila. 1,000 volunteers aged 18 to 60 will participate in the trials. And the House of Representatives adopted on final reading the proposed amendments to the Constitution's economic provisions with a vote of 251 to 21 and 2 abstentions. The resolution seeks to empower Congress in easing restrictions on foreign investments. Critics believe it would be prone to abuse. And now for the big story in sports. Leaders of the 4 Grand Slam tennis tournaments pledged to address players' concerns about mental health. This comes after Naomi Osaka announced that she is withdrawing from the French Open. She refused to speak to the media at the Grand Slam. The 4-time major winner posted a statement on Twitter saying she was pulling out so that everyone can get back to focusing on tennis. Following her straight-set victory last Sunday, Osaka was fined $15,000 for not talking to the media. Time for another quick break. When we return, Senator Manny Pacquiao blasts Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi for the rotational brownouts in Luzon. His comments, he says, go beyond party issues. And Kiefer Ravena's possible stint at the Japan B-League is in limbo as early as now. The holdup, his existing contract with the PBA. The details after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. Senator Manny Pacquiao is blaming Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi for the rotational brownouts in Luzon. This comes backdropped by a widening rift between the two PDP Laban leaders. Mian Los Baños with the details.
Politics over energy. For Senator Manny Pacquiao, this has become the priority of Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi. In a privileged speech, Pacquiao put the blame on Cusi for the rotational brownouts in Luzon. He says the interruptions could affect storage capacity for COVID-19 vaccines and in turn damage President Duterte's image.
5 years ago, Secretary Cusi declared that there is no looming power crisis. And here we are, having brownouts, Mr. President. Nasa red alert pa naman tayo ngayon. Pinagkatiwalaan ka dyan ng Pangulo, nilagay ka dyan dahil tiwalat siya sa'yo. He is incompetent sa posisyon na yan dyan.
But Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon asked Pacquiao whether the tirade was only motivated by Pacquiao and Cusi's rift within PDP Laban.
Nakatanggap ako ng tawag. Baka naman nag-privilege speech at privilege speech si Senator Pacquiao. Dahilan po nag-aaway sila sa partido ni Secretary Cusi. At ang sinasabi, away ng mga politiko yan. Hindi tama yung, hindi kami naniniwala na yan po ay dahilan sa paniniwala ng Senator Pacquiao na talagang may pagkukulang si Secretary Cusi. Ayaw ko pong paniwalaan ito.
Para po sa accountability po nating lahat na sa gobyerno, ang sinasabi ko, yung problema namin sa partido, huwag niyo pong alalahanin yan, maliit lang po yan na problema at parang away ng pamilya, magkakapatid po at resolbahan po namin yan sa loob ng bahay namin.
Cusi is the vice chairman of ruling party PDP Laban, while Pacquiao sits as its acting president. The feud between the two worsened when Cusi led the party's National Council meeting in Cebu, despite the lawmakers' efforts to block it. During the meeting, members adopted a resolution to convince the president to run for vice president in 2022. They're also giving him a free hand to pick his running mate. But according to Cusi, they still have a process in selecting their standard bearer. When asked if Pacquiao could run for the top post, Cusi quipped, "Everything is fluid."
Ngayon, possibility naman po ba na si Manny Pacquiao po, si Senator Pacquiao, si Pangulong Duterte maging tandem? Sabi ko nga po, wala naman, hindi ko, authoritatively, masasagot ko yun. Hindi po. Kasi everything is fluid. Kanina po, sinasabi ko nga kanina, malay natin, baka si Kong Joey ang masabi.
PDP Laban is set to reconvene on July 17 and among the agenda is a possible change in leadership. Reporting for News 5, Mian Los Baños, we are One News.
Davao City Mayor and presidential daughter Sara Duterte is said to be running for president in 2022. Albay Representative Joey Salceda is making the claim made the claim during his interview with 1PH sa Totoo Lang. But according to the lawmaker, a Duterte tandem is unlikely, even as PDP Laban is making a push for President Duterte to run for vice president. Salceda said that Mayor Sara has started seeking alliances with other parties for the election bid. Mayor Duterte has so far refused to comment on the matter.
Let's take a look at the biggest stories on print and online. From the Philippine Star, the House Committee on Higher Education approved the substitute bill institutionalizing the 1989 accord between the University of the Philippines and the Department of Defense. The department terminated the accord with UP January this year on claims of alleged communist recruitment in the university. Government wants to collect at least 60 billion pesos from offshore gaming operators or POGOs in 2 years. Business World reports that government seeks POGO tax collections of 29 billion pesos this year and 32 billion pesos in 2022. The collections would come from the 5% gaming tax and the 25% withholding tax from POGO employees. Frontliners working at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport start their vaccinations against COVID-19. News 5 reports that over 7,000 airport frontliners in total are set to get anti-COVID shots. These include Immigration and Bureau of Quarantine personnel, as well as transportation security officers. Another big story in sports. Kiefer Ravena signed with the Shiga Lake Stars in the Japan B-League. Ravenna will join his younger brother 30, who signed a multi-year contract last month to remain with the San Neo Phoenix. Ravenna, however, will have to take care of some legalities first before joining the Japanese team. The Phenom is currently under contract with the NLEX Road Warriors, which may prevent him from playing outside the PBA.
Regarding kay Forlin, may UPC siya, may kontrata siya sa PBA, hindi pwede. As a commissioner at as sa office of the PBA, office of the commissioner, hindi pwede.
Marahil ikaw ay nagtataka, but the iconic OPM song Harana has a missing verse unbeknown to many. In Jing Castañeda's Pamilya Talk, the original composer Eric Yaptanco made the big reveal to other Harana singers. Parokya ni Edgar's Chito Miranda, ex-Smoky Mountain member Tony Lambino, and Cholo Malilin.
Ang harana, marahil ngayon ay alam mo na. Basta para sa iyo aking hirang, kahit na magmukhang sipang, tutupin ang lahat niya. Pagkat ako yung bihay at mahal kita, Sinta.
Yapi also clarified, the second verse doesn't end with, sa istoryang nagwawakas sa pag-ibig na wagas.
Sa storyang nagwawakas sa pag-ibig na, nagtatapos sa pag-ibig na lubos.
Chito was flabbergasted.
Yan ang lang. Ibang-iba pa rin. Inantala ko sa mga kasi maling-mali pa rin.
Yapi wrote Harana in 1987 to serenade ladies at the Ateneo de Manila University. It eventually became a campus tradition. Cholo recorded an unreleased demo version, while Tony included it in his 1992 album, First Note. Parokya's version came 5 years later, in Burugudoy's Tuns Tugudunstoy. Yapi said he doesn't mind how Harana has taken a life of its own after decades. For him, what matters is the spirit of camaraderie. Nick Garcia, We Are One News.
I was watching that the other night. Pinakinggan ko yung version na yon. So, sinerch ko, Harana, Tony Lambino. Grabe, nakaka-in-love. Hindi, ang ganda nung last stanza kasi parang dalawa lang yung in-include sa parokya. Tapos tatlo pala yon.
Nung nasa Ateneo ka ba, kinakanta nyo pa yon? And did you realize that that went all the way back to 1987?
I was surprised. It was an Ateneo tradition. Paulit-ulit ko siya piniplay. Kasi wala pang kumakanta sa akin nun.
Ayun.
YouTube na lang. YouTube nyo na lang.
Parang may hugot doon. Sige, iserye natin yung kwentong yan.
Panoorin nyo na lang po. That wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Hall. We are One News. Have a good evening.